it's finally time. Time to start powering up with the best builds for the new season while we wait for the new Path of Exile expansion. But not only that, as per usual, I'll also present you with some fun yet strong alternatives that you can play. Because spoilers, D4 is still a fucking game, and you can play games to have fun. Most of these builds are played in mid to end game, so you'll need to invest more time than just booting up the game before you can play them. We have a buttload of builds to go through, so let's head straight for everyone's favorite, the shit-smearing barbarian. Alright, done with that one. Let's take a look at an actual class, shall we? And the one you're most likely here for? The Spirit Kuma. First build we have is also the highest clearing, most broken build known yet. Ace of Spades Touch of Death build. There's just no way of getting around it. This build is legit broken. Able to speedrun tier 100 pits, which is the old pit 200 by the way, and slapping all the way to pit 115 in what is far from optimal gear. I reckon this could be one of the most popular builds in the game. And why is it so goddamn broken? Well, it's quite simple, really. It's a new class, so there is an extra 0 added to each multiplier. The class has to sell more expansions. Don't believe me? Alright, let's just take a look at a random aspect. Typically, you'd expect between 20 to 60% maximum for an aspect. Here is Redirected Force, granting a 1.4 multiplier. Should make sense now. Either way, let's take a look at some ways this build utilizes these broken mechanics. For starters, the bulk of the damage comes from Touch of Death and the Rod of Kepaleke. What this does is that it takes all of your resource, which is called Vigor, and busts out a massive hit. And it will truly become massive, hitting upwards of 10 billion after the stat squish. Now here's the thing. Touch of Death is not a core skill. But fortunate for us, all you need to do is pick up a skill point, and it is. This also allows us to benefit from a buttload of core skill multipliers to deal massive amounts of damage. The downside of this, though, is that it also makes Touch of Death cost a shit ton of resources. But fortunate for us, it's easily solved via one item. Yeah, you guessed it, the fucking rod does everything. And when the passive blows your fully stacked Vigor, you have the Midnight Sun Ring to instantly regenerate it all. Easy peasy. Slapping on a basic skill tag onto your Touch of Death via the rod has another benefit as well. The key passive Prodigy's Tempo. Due to this, you're able to constantly reset all of your cooldowns along with getting some additional skill ranks. Pretty balanced. The rest of the interactions, though, are quite simple. Big damage good, and big damage equals big dick. But considering you're probably new to the Spiritborn class, let's take a look at all the skills that Ace is utilizing to maximize our damage. First out is the Hunter. It's the massive jaguar that you're seeing every now and then. This is used for a buttload of big hecking dam. By grabbing Harmonious Hunter, you're doubling your damage against injured enemies, and by combining it with Exalted Hunter, you'll reset the ultimate constantly as long as you're killing shit. It's also granting you Ferocity, which is another resource type which you can use to buff your attack speed along with utilizing some additional multipliers in the skill tree. Next skill is Soar, which is not only what all the other classes were feeling after Blizz fucked them over in the patch notes, but it's also what this skill is called. This is the Mobility Bird, allowing you to fly all over the place and drop a wet turd on your enemies. This is also your main way of applying Vulnerable. After that, we have Armored Hide. Not only is this usable for the aspect I mentioned earlier, for the 1.4 multiplier, but it's also massive for damage reduction. It grants you Resolve, which basically translates to damage reduction, and it also grants you Block Chance. Counterattack grants you crit damage and dodge chance, both via the skill tree. And finally, Ravager is used for damage, and it has a skill node where it turns your core skills into a dash, along with boosting your Vigor generation. When it comes to the gameplay, you're basically just pressing all of your buttons on cooldown and get out as many touch of death as possible. Do that, and you'll delete all content in the game. There are, of course, a lot of more important interactions that can be of interest. You'll find Ace's guide in the description, along with guides to all the builds in this video. For the next build, let's take a look at what Beavis the German Barbarian has been cooking for us. Or well, I guess it's Beavis the Spirit Kuma now. Basically, all the interactions we just talked about are also utilized in this build. The biggest difference is that you're utilizing Quill Volley instead of Touch of Death for Big Damn. This skill in itself also makes enemies vulnerable, which doesn't force you into shitting on your enemies as a bird to do it. The main benefit playing this build over the other is rather simple. It's sexy as fuck. The build, that is. But the German guy is a baddie as well, I'll give him that. While the build may be slightly weaker in pushing, it sure as hell is visually appealing. I'll probably start gaming this one. When it comes to damage, apart from the multipliers we mentioned in the last build, we're also rocking the rebounding aspect to double the amount of feathers we shoot out. This, along with advantageous Quill Volley, allows us to bust out 16 of those bad boys each time we press the button, which is a fair sum of volleys. Watching the Beavis gameplay, you can see that each of these volleys are hitting for a few 100 million. So I think it's safe to say that this build will be dealing a buttload of billions of DPS. Pretty balanced, I must say. Another change from the previous build is that it's also rocking Scourge instead of counterattack for even more damage and lifesteal, basically turning you into an immortal god. Alright, those are the top 2 builds that are out currently. I'm excited to see what builds the community managed to cook as the game launches, and it's not just a few people theory crafting the class, it could be fun. Heading into the next class, we have yet some additional amazing builds, because this class is looking fine as hell, and it's the Rogue. And first out is Crafty's Urinator, because who doesn't like pissing on your enemies? This build was playable in Season 5 as well, where it was the highest pit-pushing build in the game, apart from 1 or 2 sorcerer builds, and it's still looking to be fine as hell. And it's all about Rapid Fire Baby combined with the Precision Key passive stacking up a shit ton of critical strike damage and blowing everything up. The only item you truly need for the build to work is the Scoundrel's Kiss, as it turns your rapid fire arrows into an explosive urination, so go kill the perverted bat aka Lord Zir and get blasting. Now the main complaint of this build is that it was never console-friendly and hard to play for the dogshit newbies. But here is the good part. This gameplay is from console, because Crafty has actually crafted a rapid fire build that is fully playable by dogshit console users. Just lovely. One of the reasons as to why this particular version is lovely is that it utilizes poison imbuement. This is easy as hell to reset, as you have built-in cooldown reduction in the spell itself, and all you need to keep it up permanently is 1 poison imbuement temper somewhere on your jewelry. Personally, I typically slap it onto my left nut.
Oh, yay!
On top of that though, while the regular rapid fire build relies entirely on crowd control, this version does not. And why is that? Well, shit. To make the build easier and more consistent. It doesn't matter if one of your rapid fire fucks off to Uganda, you can just send out another one. But hey, Mr. Paragaming Big Dick Senpai, what about the Trick Attacks passive? That requires you to crowd control enemies, and it's absolutely broken, so how do we keep that up? Well, damn my man, by utilizing the repeating aspect and allowing demons to fuck you from behind, the passive bugs out and lets you keep it up permanently without you actually killing the enemies. Hell yeah. When it comes to the gameplay, it's silky smooth. It's the only combo points build on this tier list, which some people love and some hate, which is fair. Personally, I love combo points as it's a core mechanic of all rogue enjoyers. All you do is get 3 combo points by using a basic skill, which is either Puncture or Heartseeker in this build, and you then blow shit up. There are also a lot of ways in which you can maximize your damage in this build, allowing you to benefit a whole lot by being a skilled gamer, so it's a rewarding build in that way. Correctly placing your traps and evading at the correct times, you can definitely double your damage output. Alright, and next up, we have what will be a fan favorite, the Spin to Win Rogue build. Basically, this is a Whirlwind Barbarian build with the difference of being 10 times stronger. So, if you've got any interest in spinning this season, then I'd probably go with this in case you're also interested in winning. The basics of this build is that it works solely through the Victimize Key passive. This passive has changed a gazillion fucking times already, so let's take a look at how it actually works now. For starters, it's a lucky hit skill, meaning you need to get a lucky hit for it to work, and we will therefore stack a buttload of lucky hit chance. When it procs, it then has a 50% chance to actually do something. That's the first part. If it then actually does damage, it will do 60% damage. Okay, Mr. Para Gaming Big Dick Senpai. And what the hell does that mean? Well, shit. To make it simple, just see it as a new skill because it's been decoupled from whatever skill you trigger it with. For example, if you get a lucky hit with Barrage or Penetrating Shot doesn't matter, they will do the same damage. Investing additional skill ranks also doesn't matter because Victimize is basically a skill in itself. It's an annoying ass passive. Just know that additional skill ranks doesn't help. Anyhow, you can then scale Victimize further, which you mainly do via a buttload of vulnerable damage, and everything else you do is just to gain as many lucky hits as possible. The new skill dance of knives is excellent for this, shooting out blades all over the place. On top of that, though, you're now also able to turn Victimize into whatever damage multiplier you want. For example, here, we are turning it into a poison skill, as we will be able to keep poison imbuement up permanently, which in turn allows us to utilize a buttload of additional multipliers for non-physical damage. Finally, we can't forget the most important part about this build though. It's fucking brain dead. Just hold down the Dance of Knives button and you'll delete everything in the game. Next up, we have yet another Victimize build. This time it's the Barrage version. This was my favorite build on the Season 6 PTR, and I reckon it will be your favorite one as well. After you're done playing the Spiritborn, that is. The build works quite similar to that of the Spin to Win version. You're still stacking as much lucky hit chance as possible and try to attack as frequently as possible. And holy shit, are you able to hit frequently. There are just arrows all over the goddamn place, man. Just listen to this. Hell yeah. Each barrage you send out in turn shoots out 10 arrows. But these arrows are also ricocheting both due to enhanced barrage and the branching volley aspect. The main downside of barrage, though, is its low lucky hit chance. But you know what does not have a low lucky hit chance? Damn right, poison imbuement. With each barrage, you're able to send out a buttload of victimized procs, each dealing up to 1 billion damage. Now be aware, though, it has since this gameplay been a stat squish. But the gear used in this gameplay was also complete dogshit, so we're all good. When it comes to the gameplay, you're mainly just spamming out barrages. The rest of the skills are used for mobility and damage bonuses, and it's both excellent at pushing and speedrunning content. I can highly recommend this build. For next class, we have a build for all the Cringelord neckbeard, aka the Necro enjoyers. I must say this class is actually looking fine as hell this season, and it has 3 builds that I want to showcase. The first one being one of my absolute favorite builds, the Bloodwave Bonus Spirit build. The interactions making this build work are just fantastic. For starters, all the damage in this build comes from Bonus Spirit. But we're not casting the skill, hell, we don't even have it on our bars. How does that work? Well, shit, son. It works via the Blood Artisan Tiddy Protectors. By picking up blood orbs, we in turn spawn Bonus Spirit. Easy, huh? Damn right. But we need some way to spawn these blood orbs. And that, my friends, we do via Blood Wave. But we don't want to run around picking up the blood orbs, do we? That would be annoying as shit. And that's when Blood Lance comes into play. By utilizing the Gore Quills aspect, you're picking them all up for free. Beautiful, huh? Yeah. So basically, spawn blood waves, pick up blood orbs, do big damn. That's the basics of it all. When it comes to scaling damage, that is done via the Blood Artisan Titty Protectors as well. This thing makes bonus spirit scale via max life, so we get a shit ton of it. For example, via the Coombringer. You then just spam out as many blood waves as possible and delete everything in the game. It's just that easy, folks. This build in particular could potentially be the strongest Necro build in Season 6, and even one of the absolute strongest builds in the game. Even though Blizz injected 10 liters of pure steroids straight up Spiritborn's asshole. And if it's not the strongest Necro build, then the next one will be the pure bonus spirit build. This thing was hitting for upwards of 30 billion last season, and it's not looking to change at all. While it may be one of the more boring builds out there, Blizz sure loves it, because it has been the strongest neckbeard build for 3 seasons now, and it's getting massively buffed each fucking patch. For this one in particular, you're now able to get double the damage from tempering, just as an example. And why is the build so broken in the first place? Well, shit. Due to 3 reasons. First, it has infinite damage, stacking via the bonus spirit skill in itself. Secondly, infinite damage scaling again via the ossified essence key passive. And third, just humongous amounts of damage, multipliers all over the goddamn place. Like brew, the buffs to this build are probably the most out of place you could imagine. Either way, it's all about maximum essence and overpowers baby. The maximum essence speaks for itself. We just talked about it. When it comes to the overpowers, though, the build utilizes the Banished Lord's Talisman. By spending enough resources, you in turn overpower. And what happens when you have a buttload of maximum essence in this item? Damn right, overpowers each time you press the button. This is a massive damage scaling for the build, and it's one of the few builds that is even able to utilize overpowers, and it does it every hit El Mao. In any way, the main downside of the build is that it's boring as fuck for most players. It's a setup build, meaning you want to get enemies stacked up, pop a bone prison, and blast. Then you repeat. The second downside is that it takes a bit to set up the gear, as it has some breakpoints to even work. But when you get the build rolling, it's insanely rewarding, as you can feel every upgrade you get, and that in a good way. For the next build, we have a fan favorite, the Minion build. Fuck yeah, dude, it is making a return in Season 6. It was goated as hell during Season 4, got massively nerfed in Season 5, and it's now back on the menu yet again. There are buffs all over the place for minions, and you will have different variants that you can play. For example, the Ring of Mendeln is now usable for minion builds. Other than that, the Kalen's Edict got massively buffed along with the Cult Leader. This, on top of all the other lovely buffs to the build, easily doubled its damage. The best part about this build, though, is how insanely easy it is to set up. You don't need a single unique to blast with minions, you don't need to sort any breakpoints, hell, you don't even need resources. Or a fucking brain Lamau. I typically run this build all the way from level 1 to endgame, and then swap to another build once I get the required items. One of the main reasons as to why it is like this is how strong the aspects are and how minions scale, because they do inherit all of your stats, or well nearly all of them. This means that the stronger you get, the stronger your buddies get. And each aspect and item upgrade you get, you'll feel it no doubt. The only real downside to the build is that it has no infinite scaling. This basically means that you'll cap out eventually. But you should be able to use these builds to clear nearly everything in the game, and you're also able to do it completely buzzed out of your mind, seeing as you barely need to press a single button. Just lovely. Alright, and next up we have the budget Spiritborn, aka the fat woodchopping guy, and the build that is looking to be the strongest is the Landslider Bear Humper build. If you played Season 5, then you're probably looking at this video with skepticism right now because Stormslide got absolutely fucking gutted, no. Yeah, that's correct. But pure Landslider is still looking fine as hell. The build was great during Season 4, received a 4x buff in Season 5, and got some lovely buffs just now as well. Fortunately for you, the build is also extremely simple to understand. You press the Landslide button and you deal damage. No convoluted mechanics or bugs necessary, you just blast. We do actually need to scale it via a few excellent items and skills though. The main way to do that is via the Earthbreaker ring. By utilizing this, you've got yourself a build more or less allowing your damage to skyrocket. When it comes to the other skills, we're mainly using them to boost our damage and defensives. Poison Creeper is a particularly interesting skill, as we're not only using it to deal poison damage and gain a buttload of multipliers via it, but we are also able to spawn additional landslides via the subterranean aspect. We then reset the Poison Creeper via Pack Leader, and we in turn have yet another way of spawning unlimited landslides. Just lovely. The main problem with this build is that Landslide is expensive as shit, so you can't just slap it onto your bars and start gaming. You do actually need some resource generation first. Fortunately for us, it's easier than ever to get it. So just follow a guide and you're Gucci, my man or woman. I can recommend playing a trample slide build until you've got your gear set up properly. Next up on the agenda is the Big Daddy Boulder build. This is one of my personal favorite druid builds of all time, because who doesn't like having massive boulders all up your face? Hell yeah, dude. This is yet another build that got massively buffed in Season 5 and is getting additional buffs in Season 6. And how does the build work? Well, shit, mainly via the metamorphic stone aspect, turning boulder into a core skill and removing its cooldown. But it has a few extra important interactions. For starters, the build utilizes the Dolmen's Stone Amulet to make the flying ball sacks spin around you. The annoying part about this, though, is that Boulder pushes enemies away, right? Yeah, but that's changing in Season 6 to make them push away enemies less and make the hits more reliable. This is a huge win for the fat Woodchopper enjoyers and makes the build not fucking awful to play. Other than that, though, the main downside is that Boulder is one expensive skill. Shocker, right? Yeah. So what you'll need to start gaming is basically a few uniques and resource generation. But once you have that up and running, you will blast, no doubt. Until then, though, just play Landslide, man. Alright, that's Fatty McFatty. Let's see what the Sorcerers has going for them. Quite a bit, actually. The fan-favorite Lightning Spear did indeed get a massive kick to the nuts, though, which was a sad time for all the Diablo 4 enjoyers. But Blizz has to sell expansions, and we can't have a class stronger than Spiritborn then, can we? Yeah. Either way, Lightning Spear is still looking to be the GOAT of Sorcerer builds for now, assuming most of the bugs that were on the PTR has been removed. And how does it work for all the new dogshit newbies out there? It's rather simple. We have the Splintering Energy aspect, and we have Lightning Spear. The Splintering Energy aspect then scales its damage infinitely via crit damage, and you then have a build. Lovely. In Season 5, the build was completely broken though, so it got nerfed. And then, nerfed again. There is now a cap on the amount of lightning spears you can keep out, but it still clears everything in the game. And how do you even spawn lightning spears? Well, that's rather easy too. You spawn them via frozen ball sacks and the Winterglass Amulet. So yes, you will need this unique before you play the build, but it will be worth it. Once you have it, You just throw out a few frozen ball sacks and everything explodes around you with ease, Arnie included. Definitely a build that I recommend, as it's no joke, one of the most fun builds I've ever played. Next up, we have yet another Lurkin build. And this time, it's not frozen ball sacks, it's flaming hot ball sacks. This is not the strongest build in the game, but holy damn is it fun and visually appealing. And the build is also pretty visually appealing. It's all about fireballs in this build combined with the gloves of the Illuminator and staff of endless rage. By utilizing these, you're not only gaining bouncing fireballs via the gloves, but they are also shooting themselves out multiple times via the staff. Combine this with a lot of fire damage stacking, and you have yourself an actual build. Now, while the build does require 2 uniques to function, the build is, apart from this, insanely easy to gear for, and perhaps more importantly, even easier to play. All the skills on your bars are there to support you in defensives or damage, apart from teleport, which is a mobility skill. This basically means that the only thing you're actually doing to deal damage is run around and press the fireball button, making it the perfect brain-dead boomer build. And for the last class, I saved this one for last due to how god-awful it is. And it's the shit-smearing barbarian. This class is truly down bad right now, and it's not surprising really, seeing as all the builds got nerfed somewhere between a multiplier of 2x to around 50x. Yeah, that's right. And then people wonder why the class is in shambles LMAO. Either way, Ulf is still making great Barb builds, and I'll link his Whirlwind build, which is still looking solid, or well, at least Whirlwind is fun as hell. It works solely via the Dust Devil aspect, and scaling Dust Devils as hard as possible. There are not a lot of ways to do this in a meaningful way, unfortunately, seeing as every good scaling passive was removed, but it's good enough. Meaning, if you want to push high with this build, then you are going to need a gazillion Ubers and uniques. The strongest way to play this build currently is to rock the Ramaladni's sword and spin to win with your dual-wield weapons. You'll then stack as much maximum fury as possible, along with the Lokran's talisman, and enjoy a buttload of damage. There is a saving grace for this build though, and that is Fists of Fate. This unique has been bugged, not working properly with Whirlwind. This is an insanely strong item for this build, and due to this bug, it was only really usable in the hordes and not in the pit. But in the patch notes, this has supposedly been fixed, and that, my friends, could be just lovely. Assuming that it is fixed, then this build should be blasting all content no problemo. For our final build of the day, I'm showing you an entirely new build, the Mighty Throw Shit Smearer. This build does suffer the same problem as all the other Barb builds, namely not being able to stack anything meaningful. But it is at least a weapon mastery skill, meaning we have some lovely high scaling aspects we can utilize. Despite all of this though, it's looking to be a fairly strong build, but perhaps more importantly, it's insanely fun. You're just throwing out your mighty throws all over the place and blow shit up. Now, Mighty Throw is a weapon mastery skill with a cooldown, so how does that work? How is it possible to spam it? Well, damn my man via the third blade, obviously. Once you have this, which is insanely easy to obtain by the way, you have yourself a build. Combine this with the new Aspect Herculean Spectacle, and you're dealing respectable damage on top of that as you're hurling out way more of them. Now, I'm not entirely sure if I'll be rocking a Barb this season, but if I do, then this is the build that I will be playing. Alright friends, that's all for this one. Sub for fuck's sake, and I'll see you in the next one.
Subscribe to Parrot Gaming right fucking now and watch this fucking video to the right or left as well, or I will shove an assortment of rusty hydraulic torque wrenches up your ass. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh fuck, Bobby, go take